Mr. Sasa, we won't ask you where you are right now, but we will ask you, maybe give us a quick update on how is Myanmar doing right now? What is the situation in Yangon and in the rest of the country?
It's deeply chaos. The people of Myanmar, my people, are living under fear, under siege by illegal and illegitimate regimes of the military. And even today, they have killed some 5 people already. And it's total 60 people been killed who are peacefully protesting, just asking for their freedom, their democracy. And they just there peacefully. My people are peaceful people. But now we have got these military generals who are supposed to protect the people from any kind of acts of terrorism. But now they are acting terrorism against the people of Myanmar.
Okay. Now, Dr. Sasa, again, just by way of background, Filipinos are very much interested in what's happening in Myanmar, but just so we understand the context also, what is the committee representing the Union Parliament of Myanmar? We know that the country right now is in the grips of the military junta. What is the committee, particularly this committee that appointed you as envoy to the United Nations?
On the 1st of February, it was the day when the new sections of parliaments of Myanmar are to take place. But the military junta, they come by guns and weapons and stop the parliamentarians to enter into the building and surrounded all the parliamentarians' building with smoky guns. And they arrest them and they put them into lockup. And that very moment, this brave and decisive member of parliament, elected by the people of Myanmar, for the people of Myanmar, bravely set up together and hold the sections in their prison cells. And they formed the committee representing the parliaments of Myanmar. And that is the parliaments of Myanmar that I'm representing to United Nations and to international communities around the world. It was the elections 8th of November 2020 when my people, 36 million voters, went to elections and elect a representative, democratically free and fair. But that result of elections was stolen by guns, by smoky guns and gunpointers. Now our leaders, include our president, President Uwi Mint, our state councillor, our leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, are being detained illegally and unjustified.
Dr. Sasa, well, just to be clear, because Filipinos may not be that familiar with your system, we don't have a parliament here, we have a Congress, which is a bit different. So in other words, you represent the members of your parliament, especially those who have been put in jail by the military leaders of your country.
Yes, that's correct. It's like a House of Congress and House of Senators. The same, there's a lower house and upper house in the parliament. So I am representing both upper house and lower house of the parliament. Both of the parliaments, lower house of parliament and upper house of parliaments are called union parliament as together.
But I also understand that I think a third of parliament is composed of military appointees or military officials. Is that correct? And how does that play into the whole thing?
The military generals are determined to control the politics of Myanmar by drafting the constitution that is known as 2008 constitutions. They have drafted the constitution for 20 years. The constitution promised the military generals the autonomy and the veto power on the politics. And that constitutions promised the interest of the generals, not interest of the people. So according to their constitutions, that is the big problem in Myanmar and my country. So in that constitution, they guaranteed 25% of the seats in the House of Parliament, both in lower house and in upper house. That means that always there will be not elected member of parliament, 25% from the army generals. And they will be appointed by Commander-in-Chief of the generals army, the army of Myanmar. And at the same time, their constitutions promise Minister of Defense has to always be general, and Minister of Home Affairs always have to be general. Again, Minister of Border Affairs has to be always general, and then one Vice President has to be general. So that means they gave themselves 4 cabinet ministers out of 10 ministers of cabinet, including that 25% of member of parliament and commander-in-chief of the army generals. So that means that everything they have taken away from the people of Myanmar, according to the constitution that they have created.
The generals are proposing that they will hold elections after they lift the state of emergency. Is that acceptable to you?
It's meaningless. We don't need another election. We already have free and fair and democratic elections on the 8th of November 2020. So asking for another election is stupid and crazy and unacceptable, is unjustified. And again, it's illegal, it's illegitimate. Because we already have legitimate elections. We already have legal elections under the constitution created by the generals themselves. So they cannot afford to lose in elections because they lost heavily on election with their proxy parties that they have formed under the military generals. That means that they just like to get into power again and again. So they produce 10.4 million voter list frauds. They allege those lists, we don't know where they came from. We don't know where they produce. There's no evidence of the voter frauds. International observer, a local observer of election, all stated that it's all free and fair and democratic. That means that they just use those produce. They have manufactured 10.4 million voters frauds, maybe for military battalions. They print a lot of paper. You know, the generals or the commanders or the major or the captains, they are not election officers by any way. They are just military with the guns. That means that they have nothing to do with elections. That means that they produce election list. We never know from where it came. Maybe it came from their local commanders or the battalions. They manufacture from their fake machinery. And now they are using that as a weapons to kill the people, to prison the people. Yeah, that is completely unacceptable, and serious violation of human rights and abuse of human rights have been taking place across the nations. So we again call on international community to act quickly and decisively, especially for our ASEAN friends. This is the time that they have to act. If they do not act this time, again, I believe history will judge us harshly.
Well, Doctor, we are at a disadvantage in that we always have to wait for information to filter out of Myanmar. Can you tell us, are we getting the full picture? Or are we getting an accurate picture of what's happening in Myanmar? Or are there things that we are not hearing or not seeing that we should be seeing? Are there stories that should be played some more? Are there stories that are underplayed or overplayed? Can you give us an idea?
I mean, right now, the problem is that 54 million people are living under fear in my country, Myanmar. And secondly, today it can be the day when they will kill me. Yeah, today can be the day when my mom will be arrested. Today can be the day when my dad will be arrested. Today's the day. Today may be the day when my daughter, my brother, my sister will be killed. So it's like the smoky guns in the doorsteps. They are pointing and on the high, and they are doing this. Even snipers on the high, aiming to kill, shoot to kill. So I mean, all the country are under siege. As I said, they turned the country into chaos. That means that our neighbors, our friends, our family. We are the family. ASEAN as 10 members. We are 10 members of the family, and this is happening. It seems to us that our neighbors, our friends, our family members are closing their eyes so that they will not see it, and closing their ear so that they will not hear it. So the people of Myanmar are crying and dying. So I think it's the time for our neighbor and the world to hear the voice of the suffering of the people of Myanmar.
So how would you assess, you mentioned ASEAN, how would you assess the response of ASEAN and the individual countries right now?
It has been some very unfortunate. Again and again, some of our ASEAN friends are continue to stand with the military junta, which is illegal and illegitimate. It's not the will of the people of Myanmar. So all our ASEAN friends, we are calling them to stand with the people of Myanmar, not again with illegitimate and illegal military-led governments. That means that some of the country, again, they think that it's eternal problem. No more eternal problem. It is already original problem. In a family, we are 10 people living together. If one is behaving bad, killing its own people, declare the war on its people, that means that the 9 friends, the 9 family members have the responsibility to protect the children of that person who is killing own children. It's very simple. It's very common sense. So we are asking all the country in ASEAN, our friends, our dear neighbors, to please stand with the people of Myanmar, not again with this illegitimate and illegal military council.
But we have some experience with the exiled government, prior to the reform age that allowed the NLD back into mainstream politics in Myanmar. And if we look back at that history, we were discussing it earlier. ASEAN, as you know, is very conservative. We work by consensus. It works very, very slow. The member countries have gone as far as to say that the elections should be respected, but as you said, not a categorical backing of the elected parliament as the real government. What is the implications beyond Myanmar, given our history in ASEAN of slow-moving, move by consensus, the ASEAN way, and so on? What beyond Myanmar, what is the implications for ASEAN if, as you said, this family does not take a position on this particular trouble in Myanmar?
This is very simple. These military generals, they are in any country, Asia or Myanmar, it doesn't matter, really. They are putting ASEAN into shame in front of the world. That means that we cannot effort by this small number of people putting ASEAN into shame on the stage of the world. It's 21st century. The people must realize that it's no time for words, it's time for actions. That means that if we are going to behave like that again and again, no one in the world is going to respect us, ASEAN, anymore. I think we cannot afford to lose the respect that we need to have as ASEAN country. That means that we have to make decisive actions when necessary. Whenever there's emergency, we have to act quickly and immediately, not waiting and seeing what happened. So I think that this is putting ASEAN, taking ASEAN backwards. If we have got stable neighbor and prospering neighbor and thriving neighbor, that's much better to have than this kind of military generals who are killing its own people. This is a criminal act. It's a crime against humanity. It's not just something went wrong. It is about crime against humanity. So unfortunately, these generals of military regime has committed crime against humanity times and times again. 1962, they have committed the same crime against humanity. 1988, they have committed crime against humanity. Again, 1997, once with the students. Again, in 2007, with the monk. Killing the monks on the street is crime against humanity. And with Rohingya people, in 2017, they have pushed almost 1 million people to the sea and killed many of them. Now it's happening again. So ASEAN has the responsibility to come to stand where the truth is. So they cannot stand again and again covering these generals who have committed crime against humanity. If they still stand with them, they will be blamed in history. The history will judge us harshly.